And yeah, got it. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's a very nice initiative that we have started, um, of going through teachings of Queen Kunti, because Gaur Kumar Prabhu and I, and yeah, we felt that by doing this, we will look into certain sections of Bhagavatam. Now we are beginning with Queen Kunti, and then by that we will also have the satisfaction of completing a book and discussing a book. At the same time, we'll get a peek into what consciousness these devotees have, and various sections of the Bhagavatam, and that way, you know, be more nourished through this sangha, through this through all of our realizations, right? Yeah, so I'll start off with the prayers. Just yeah, I mean, you can maybe just sing along. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Yeah, so thank you very much. I seek the blessings and prayers from all the assembled Vaishnavas here, so that I can do justice to this great personality, Queen Kunti, and her wonderful prayers to the Supreme Lord. And I hope that I represent the Guru Parampara properly through this endeavor. So yeah, I don't have anything to share on my screen. I do have, but I'll come back to that later. So let me minimize this. Yes. So just some to begin with. In my initial years of Krishna, even now to a great extent, whenever there is action going on in Krishna Lila. Okay, I am usually, like, we are usually more attentive. There is action going on. Oh, Krishna, the Brahmana has come with a letter from Rukmini, and he's reading out the letter, and Krishna is plotting to go and kidnap Rukmini and marry her. Okay, and then he goes there, right, and then he kidnaps her, and then the armies of Rukmi, they are after him, to fight, and then so when there is activity, we are more engrossed, we are more attentive and absorbed. But when it comes to prayers, especially for me, in the beginning years, I would feel, okay, yeah, prayers have begun now, and then, yeah, the same thing, Krishna, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, etc., etc., and you are so wonderful, and this and that, and then it would literally, I would kind of feel that, okay, this is repetitive. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't feel as absorbed in prayers as I would be absorbed in any other leela, any other activity. But that is a wrong disposition. That is not the correct disposition, because these prayers of great devotees, they have the highest philosophical truths in them. Okay, highest philosophical truths, and they depict the very deep rooted devotion that these devotees have, that comes out through their prayers. So just to open it up, can anybody tell me some of the famous prayers in the Bhagavatam? Anyone? If yeah, any famous prayers?
Prayers of Lord Brahma.
Yes, prayers of Lord Brahma, right? After the Brahma Vimohan Leela, Krishna is angry at him, you know, and then Brahma speaks to Krishna. He prays, right? Any other prayers? Very important prayer, yes, Lord Brahma's prayers.
How about like a Gopi Geet and
Oh yeah, that is the crest jewel, right? Gopi Geet is like considered as one of the most important prayers offered by the gopis to Krishna, right, in separation. And there are so many other prayers by the gopis that we see in the Bhagavatam, right? But Gopi Geet is like the, kind of the pristine crest jewel, right? And then yeah, what else? Which other prayers do we see in the Bhagavatam?
Hare Krishna, Dandavats. I ever read this, but I remember the podcast that or the session that was given of Uddhav Gita. So isn't that also some deep prayer?
Yes, Uddhav Gita is also a prayer in a way, and also it's like a Q&A session between Krishna and. But yeah, Uddhava does offer prayers at places in Bhagavatam. Yeah, they might not be as long. I mean, I'm not aware of it. Yeah, please correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, Uddhav did offer prayers. Yeah, thank you so much. Any other prayers?
Vrinda Mataji is saying Prahlad's prayers.
Yes, Prahlad's prayers. Yeah, very, very important. After the killing of Hiranyakashipu, there was nobody that could pacify Narsimhadev. Nobody, all these big demigods and sages, they went and tried to pacify, because Narsimhadev has just killed, he's angry. He's completely angry. Ugra Narsimha, right? He just killed Hiranyakashipu, and he's very angry. And then all these prayers, even Lakshmi ji, she offers prayers, but he doesn't calm down. But when Prahlad, he offers those prayers, right? That's when Narsimhadev calms down and becomes peaceful, right? And that's where we have that picture, right? There is, so usually the Narsimhadev that we see in Mayapur is the Ugra Narsimha, right? He's just coming out of the pillar and he's about to attack Hiranyakashipu, right? But then there is another picture that we see very often. Narsimhadev is sitting peacefully and he's smiling, right? So that was Narsimhadev's mood when Prahlad Maharaj offered prayers, right? And then there are so many other prayers, Dhruva, right? Okay, one quiz question. Who exemplified the process of prayer? Okay, we know that there are 9 essential limbs of the process of Bhakti Yoga. Okay, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Padasya. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atma Nivedanam Iti Pumsarpita Vishnu Bhaktischin Navalakshana. Right? These are the 9 processes of devotional service. And each of these processes has a devotee in the scriptures who has exemplified that particular process, right? So this process of offering prayers, which is also called as Vandanam, do you know who exemplified that? Who perfected? Yes, exactly. Akrura is the one who exemplified that process. Shravanam was exemplified by
Parikshit.
Yeah. Kirtanam.
Sukadeva Goswami.
Yes. Smaranam, Vishnu Smaranam.
Prahlad.
Yeah. Archanam. Prithu Maharaj. Yes. Vandanam is Akrura, then Dasyam, Lord Hanuman, Sakhyam. Yes. And then Atmanivedanam. Yes. Atmanivedanam. Bali Maharaj. And then there is one devotee who exemplified all the 9 processes. Who is that?
Ambarish.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So every process is important. So it's not that the devotee who exemplifies that process, he doesn't do any of the other 8 processes. They do it, but predominantly they do one process. Like they perfect their life to one process. And in case of Akrura, that is Vandanam, right? Now I don't remember the prayers of Akrura, but I know for sure that they are very deep and very profound. Okay. Similarly, Dhruva prayed, right? Dhruva prayed to Lord Vishnu when he appeared, and so many other prayers, right? So one very important prayer is Rudra Geet, right? The prayers of Lord Shiva. He when he is preaching to the Prachetas, correct? That Rudra Geet, it is again very, Prachetas are the sons of the king Prachini Barishat, right? So when they are performing austerity, right, these Prachetas, that time Lord Shiva appears there, right? And yeah, so there are so many prayers, and prayers form a very important limb of the process of bhakti, right? Vandanam. And yeah, and of course, the principal process in Kali Yuga is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Sparanam, right? Mainly Shravanam and Kirtanam, right? And but still, we should know the importance of the other processes, as because these processes nourish our Krishna consciousness. These processes, they are a medium for us to take deeper shelter of Krishna, more intense shelter of Krishna, right? And yeah, and prayers of devotees nourish us in Krishna consciousness. Of course, prayers of other devotees, like the great devotees. Today we are saying Kunti Maharani, right? And they help us remembering Krishna, right? There are 2 processes, or rather 2 principles, that are subservient to all other rituals and whatever we do. 2 principles. Anybody knows what are those 2 principles? Everything, whatever Vedas, all Upanishads, everything, Puranas, whatever we learn, whatever we do, whatever rituals we perform, right? Whatever actions we do are supposed to help us attain the 2 principles. What is that? What are those 2 principles? Very easy, we know this, but
To
just I want to.
forget him.
Yes, to remember Krishna always and to never forget him, right? This comes in Padma Puran. Smartavya satatam Vishnu, vismartavyo na jatuchit, right? Sarve vidhi nishedha sur etayor eva kinkara, right? Smartavya satatam Vishnu. Satatam Vishnu, smartavya, remembering Krishna always. Vismartavyo na jatuchit, never forget Krishna, right? So these 2 principles are subservient to all other rituals, right? And this was mentioned in Padma Puran, and it is quoted in CC, Chaitanya Charitamrita as well. So yeah, these are, so I'm trying to list down the why are prayers important. Okay, one is, of course, it is an essential limb of the process of bhakti. Second is, prayers help us nourish our Krishna consciousness, right? They help us remember Krishna, right? And then one of the 64 principles that Rupa Goswami mentions in Nectar of Devotion is that one must learn to offer prayers to the Lord. Okay, offer prayers to the Lord. And another principle which is related to this is to beg for mercy, right? Rupa Goswami mentions in NOD that we need to beg for mercy from Krishna, right? And so it is said that whenever we see the deity, we should offer prayers, right? We should offer prayers, and if nothing comes in our mind, then at least we should chant the Hare Krishna mantra, because Hare Krishna mantra actually is a prayer, right? Prabhupada said that the meaning of Hare Krishna mantra is Hare is, of course, Radharani, Krishna is Krishna, Ram is Balaram, right? And then we are saying, oh energy of the Lord, oh Lord Krishna, please engage me in your service, right? That is the meaning of the Hare Krishna mantra, right? So we should beg for mercy, right? Whenever we see a deity, we should, yeah. And it's okay, we don't have to know complex Sanskrit shlokas to offer prayers. We can offer prayers in any language. Krishna is the master linguist, right? He understands any language, It's not that, oh, I don't know Sanskrit or I don't know Bengali. Okay, how do I offer prayers to Lord Chaitanya? I don't know Bengali, right? No, it's not like that. Krishna understands all languages, and the main thing is that he understands our mood, he understands our intention, he understands our devotion, right? That is what he values, right? So any language is okay. Another reason in Narsimha Puran, it is mentioned that one who offers prayers to the deity of the Lord is at once freed from sinful reactions and is transferred to Vaikuntha, right? So this is what Narsimha Puran talks about as the glories of offering prayers to the Lord, right? And then prayers save us at the time of calamity. Hmm? Who is the perfect example of this? Of this principle. Prayers save us at the time of calamity. There are many examples, but there is one example which is like discussed a lot in this regard. Any ideas?
Is it Gajendra, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Yeah, Gajendra. So Gajendra was a crocodile, and then Gajendra was not a crocodile. I take that back. Gajendra was the elephant, and then one day he was bathing in the river, and then this crocodile, it came and caught his leg, and then there was a scuffle, and then how many years the fight went on for? The fight went on for 1,000 years or something, or 10,000 years, is it? Yeah, it's in thousands, right? And then the problem was Gajendra was a land animal because he was an elephant, and the crocodile was a water animal, right? So the crocodile was getting stronger and stronger as time passed, right? Because that was his natural territory, right? And so at this point of time, nothing could save him. There was all his relatives were just watching. Nobody, was intervening, or nothing could save him at that point, right? But what did save him is in his previous life as King Indradyumna, he had prayed, right? He had prayed very intensely with love and devotion to Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayan, and those prayers are what came to his rescue at that point of time. And immediately, in that state of calamity, he started, offering those prayers, and then we know the story, right? Vishnu, Lord Narayan, or Lord Vishnu, he comes on the Garuda and liberates Gajendra and the crocodile too, right? So, right, prayers save us at the time of calamity, right? And then all of us have to go through one calamity for sure. Although our life might be filled with some great calamities, or some good, not good calamities, I would say, but good moments in life, right? Our life is filled with good and bad moments, but there is one calamity that everybody has to face, which is a very, very dangerous, very intense calamity, and that calamity is the calamity of death, right? So Srila Prabhupada says that if we don't form a habit of chanting the holy names of God with feeling, and offering prayers to the Lord with feeling, then it will be very difficult for us at the time of death to offer prayers and to chant the names of Krishna in a heartfelt mood, right? Because at that time you can't do anything. You can't do karma yoga. Karma yoga is gone because you can't move, right? There is nothing you can do. You can't do jnana yoga. What philosophical speculation are you going to do at the time of death? No, nothing. What logic are you going to apply? You're in pain, right? And then what asanas are you going to do? You can't do any asanas, right? At the time of death, you're lying on the deathbed, right? But one thing you can do is very intensely pray. Of course, I haven't realized this, but yeah, theoretically it kind of makes sense, right? You can't do any of the other three things, right? You can, but you can surely offer prayers, right? So that and to be able to do that, we have to have a life of sincere devotion, right? It's not that suddenly at the time of death I will remember Krishna, right? We have to have we've seen the case of Ajamila as well, right? Although he had that power, that he had practiced this brahminical qualities before he got into the association of the prostitute, right? And that kind of and of course he named his son as Narayan, right? But then we have to and again the story of Ajamil also has the lesson of the glory of the holy name, that even such a sinful person can. But we need to think, how come he was able to even kind of name his son as Narayan, right? So there has to be some past thing that he did, and we read that he was a very good brahmana, right? Very sincere brahmana. And then so that is one. Prayer save us at the time of calamity. And then another reason is Krishna is pleased when he's glorified, right? And of course, even we feel pleased when we are glorified, right? At least I feel pleased when I'm glorified, right? But our pleasure is because of bodily attachment. Our pleasure when we are glorified is because of false ego, right? Because we are anu, we are insignificant, and whatever, yad yad vibhuti matsatvam shrimad urjitam eva tattad evavagachatvam mama tejo amsha sambhavam, right? Whatever you see in the world, whatever great things you see in the world, wonderful things you see in the world, they are but a spark of my splendor, right? So we need to understand that when devotees praise us, or anybody praises us, they are praising that quality of Krishna that is manifesting through us, that that amsha of the splendor of Krishna that is manifesting through us, right? So that way we should understand that when we are getting pleasure out of this thing, or out of being glorified, that is because of our false ego. But Krishna's pleasure is not because of false ego. That we need to remember. Krishna's pleasure is because of true ego, because in reality he's Vibhu, or he's the supreme, right? Nityo nityanam chetanas chetanam eko bahunam yo vidadhati kama, right? There is this one supreme, and then there are all these units, or infinitesimal units of that supreme, right? And the supreme is the maintainer of these infinitesimal units, right? So when he is pleased, that pleasure is because of the reality, because of his reality, correct? So sometimes envious people, they think, why does Krishna expect to be glorified? Is he proud of himself? No, pride is when we become kind of proud of something we are not qualified to be proud of, right? But that is not the case with Krishna. Krishna is, of course, he's the supreme Lord. He's Parabrahma. He is the supreme reality, and he is the source of all opulent, source of everything good that we see in the world. So of course, him being glorified is his reality. So Krishna feels pleasure when he is glorified, right? And then another reason mentioned is Skanda Puran. In Skanda Puran, it is said that a person whose tongue is always decorated with the wonderful prayers offered to the Supreme Lord Krishna draws respect from all great rishis, munis, and becomes worshipable even for demigods, right? It's mentioned in Skanda Puran, right? Now we see, at least in the Indian context, we see so many people worshipping the demigods, right? Demigod, Deva, O Deva, Ganpati Deva, Tumse Badkar Kaun, something like that. So who is more greater than you? Who is greater than you, O Lord Ganesha, right? But we see in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yepyanya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvita tepi mameva kaunteya yajantya avidhi purvakam, right? And then tavattu phalam tesham tadbhavatyalpam medasam devan deva yajoyanti madbhakta yanti mamapi, right? So the results that the demigods give, they are all temporary, okay? And Krishna says these are alpamedasam, right? Those people who worship demigods out of material desires, they are of lower intelligence, alpamedasam, right? So so people worship demigods for all material benefits. But when a devotee is devotee's tongue is always decorated with wonderful prayers to the Lord, these demigods, they worship such a pure devotee, right? That is the glory of offering prayers to the Lord, right? So yeah, I mean, these are some reasons, and of course there are, we can find many other reasons if we get into the Shastras, right? So we saw some examples of the prayers in the Bhagavatam, and we saw why prayers are important, okay? Now we'll try to discuss a little bit, what kind of prayer should we offer, okay? It's not that we should concoct our own prayers, right? Of course, we can compose our own prayers, okay? There is a difference between composing and concocting, right? We can compose prayers which are in line with the mood of the previous acharyas, and which is correct, that way. and then or we can just concoct something, but that is not what we. And then we also see some concoctions. You go to YouTube, and then if you just do a simple search, you will find so many prayers composed by these Bollywood artists, or these are not bona fide prayers. Okay, although they might sound very nice to us, but they might not be bona fide prayers, right? So what kind of prayer should we offer? Those should be authentic. Those should be in the line of the previous acharyas and the great devotees like Kunti Devi, whom we are going to discuss today, right? And then one of the 64 items, we discussed two of the 64 items that Rupa Goswami mentions, right? Begging for mercy and learning to offer prayers to the Lord, right? Another one in those 64 items that Rupa Goswami mentions is one should offer notable prayers, right? So notable prayers are prayers offered by the great devotees in the past, right? So that way a prayer that we offer should be authorized, right? And it should be okayed by the great devotees, right? That is the standard of the prayer that we should be offering. Okay, right? So yes, and then what is the advantage of repeating notable prayers, right? What is the advantage of repeating notable prayers is we have turned away from Krishna, right? We have turned away from Krishna. We don't know how many lifetimes. It might have been millions and billions and trillions of lifetimes we have turned away from Krishna, right? And suddenly if we turn to Krishna and say, oh Krishna, please accept me, it doesn't work that way, right? Because Krishna is a person. We need to understand that, we it's something like a beggar on the street is coming and he starts offering prayers to you, and he says that please form a relation with me, right? Please form a relation with me, and let's exchange love with each other. Why would we entertain such a person, right? So Krishna is like that person from whom we have turned away, right? We have turned away for so many lifetimes, and if we suddenly turn to Krishna and expect that, oh, Krishna should accept me, of course he's merciful, right? He will give us an opportunity. That is not to say that Krishna will just kick us out. No, that is not the point. The point is that Krishna is a person, and we need to develop that relationship with him, right? So um, I was hearing a very nice lecture by Hari Parshad Prabhu. There he said there are two reasons why Krishna doesn't give love for him so easily, right? First reason is our deficiency, right? Our motivation to attain the love of Krishna, okay, is not very pure. Okay, at least mine is not. Okay, my motivation to attain love of Godhead is tainted with some material desires. Okay, yeah, I need that promotion. I need that promotion, or I need this money. I need to buy an apartment. Okay, and I need this money, right? So usually our prayers are tainted with material desires, right? So first reason is we are not very intense, completely intense or completely selfless in offering ourselves to Krishna. That is one reason. And the second reason is Krishna doesn't give himself so easily to anyone. Okay, because we need to understand that when Krishna gives us love of God, he becomes the property of that devotee. He literally gives himself to that devotee, right? And we know so many devotees in we see in Bhagavatam, Krishna like literally gives himself to those devotees, right? Radharani and the gopis, you can imagine the supreme personality of Godhead. He's the husband of the goddess of fortune, right? He's the creator of the entire creation, and this person, God Krishna, is telling the gopis, I don't have anything to give you for your devotion. Please be happy with your devotion. This is what Krishna is saying, right? So you can imagine when Krishna gives himself to someone, Krishna like completely gives himself, right? And it is just like I gave you that beggar's example. Prabhuji was mentioning another same example where if a beggar comes and approaches us, we might give him some money, we might give him some food, right? But we will not so easily give him ourselves, right? So similarly, Krishna, when we go to Krishna, Krishna will give us, he might give us Brahman liberation, he might give us, some wealth. but he'll not so easily give himself to us. Yeah, yeah, Jitendra Prabhu, you want your article to get published? Take it, take it. Your article is published, but love of God, no, Jitendra Prabhu, you will not get it so easily. Okay, so that is Krishna. That is Krishna. He doesn't give himself so easily, because once he does, he just completely gives himself. There is no turning back, right? That is Krishna. Okay, and our philosophy is to follow the acharyas, right? So it is said that during initiation, we take a vow in front of the guru that we'll do certain things, right? And at the same time, although the guru doesn't say it, but that is the prayer of the guru that dear Lord, please accept this. This is a sincere person. I know this person. Please accept him at your lotus feet, right? That is our philosophy. That is, we have to follow in the footsteps of our acharyas. We cannot bypass them, right? And when we do that, when a pure devotee vouches for us to Krishna, that is when Krishna will accept us, right? There is no other way. There is no. We might try millions of lifetimes to empirically understand Krishna, engage in processes of philosophical speculation, or we can engage in doing asanas for lifetimes together, but that is not what will give us Krishna. Only the mercy of a pure devotee and the mercy of Krishna is what will give us. Yasyadeve parabhaktari yatha deve tatha guru tasyete katitaya artha prakashante mahatmanah, right? Our faith has to be in the guru and in Krishna. One who has the requisite faith in the spiritual master as well as the supreme lord, to him all the imports of the Vedic knowledge are revealed, right? Another reason, what is the advantage of repeating notable prayers, right? We are always, we are, there is this whole question: what is right and what is wrong, what is to be done and what is not to be done, right? What is dharma, right? And then there are so many speculations, right? Somebody says something, one philosopher comes and he says something, okay, he interprets the shastras in one way, and he proves that, okay, this is what the shastras say. Another philosopher comes, and then he disproves that philosopher, right? This is what happens in philosophy, right? So tarko pratishta shutayo vibhinna nasa vrishir yasya matam na bhinnam. Okay, unless one philosopher, a philosopher is not a great philosopher unless he doesn't disprove his previous philosopher, his predecessor, right? So where can you find the true dharma, the true essence of dharma? Where can you find that? Yudhishthir Maharaj says in the second part of the verse, dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhaya mahajano yena gata sapantha, right? We probably know this last line, mahajano yena gata sapantha, which is quoted by Prabhupada a lot, and many of our devotees a lot, is we have to follow in the footsteps of the Mahajanas, or the great souls, right? And why do we follow in the footsteps? Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam. The essence of dharma is hidden in the heart of a Mahajana. It is hidden in the heart of a pure devotee, right? And what happens when these pure devotees offer prayers, and okay, what is in the heart of a devotee? Tomara hridoye sada Govinda Vishram, Govinda kohena mora Vaishnava para. So this is a Vaishnava song, Ei Baro Karuna Karo, right? Tomara hridoye sada Govinda Vishram. Who is in the heart of a devotee? Govinda Vishram, right? Govinda is resting, Krishna is resting. The heart of a pure devotee is a resting place of Govinda, right? So when these devotees, they pray, it is said that they pour their heart out, right? They pour the devotion of their heart out to Krishna, right? And so these prayers of notable souls are like a periscope, okay? They're like a telescope, periscope, through which we can look into the hearts of these great souls, and understand what is it that they are trying to pray, and following that in their footsteps. Mahajana yena gata sapantha, right? All our philosophical speculation is not going to help us, right? There is this nice song, I'll maybe send it on the group. I'm hearing a lot these days, Bhaja Govindam, right? bhaja govindam, govindam bhaja mood mate, right? Samprapte sannihite kale, nahi nahi rakshati durakir king karne, right? So Adi Shankaracharya is praying that, bhaja Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda, you fool, at the time of death, rules of grammar are not going to save you, right? Rules of grammar are not going to save you at the time of death. So what do you do? Bhaja Govinda, right? Worship Govinda, right? So that is the pure devotee, right? We need to approach, we need to follow in the footsteps of a pure devotee, like Kunti Maharani, right? So that's how we can follow true dharma, right? That is one advantage of repeating notable prayers. Another advantage of repeating notable prayers, so when Dhruva, he attained perfection, right? Dhruva Maharaj, he meditated, he performed austerities and meditated on, he chanted the shloka given by Narad Muni to him, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, right? So when he attained perfection, when Vishnu, appeared before him, Dhruva was completely, in ecstasy, right? He all the ecstatic symptoms started manifesting in his body, and he was in such ecstasy, shivering because of that happiness, joy of seeing the Lord face to face in front of him. He wanted to, speak, but he could not offer any prayers, right? He wanted to speak. And then it says that Lord Vishnu, he took his conch shell and he put it on the head of Dhruva. And then just like the Ganges, flows, wonderful prayers started coming out of Dhruva, right? So that way, Prabhupada writes there that these prayers of great souls are the products of spiritual energy, right? Any other prayers, any other, requests, or any other, songs that we might see in the material world, they are products of the material energy. But when the Lord is glorified, those prayers are a product of the spiritual energy, right? So when we are repeating the prayers of notable personalities, we are actually connecting to that spiritual energy in those prayers, right? And one last advantage, I mean, of course, there are so many advantages, but one last advantage that I would like to discuss is by offering prayers, by repeating the prayers of great souls, we know what is the standard. We know the benchmark, right? So just like take any other art, okay? Take any other art. You need to learn that art by seeing someone who is expert at that, like at that particular activity. Similarly, in case of prayers, we need to see who are experts in that particular activity, and those are the great souls, right? So they set the benchmark for us. They set the standard for us, right? Yeah, so we discussed examples of prayers in the Bhagavatam. Then we discussed why are prayers important, right? And then we discussed what kind of prayers should we offer, and then what is the advantage of repeating notable prayers, right? And then finally, we come to Kunti Devi, Kunti Maharani, right? Whose prayers we are going to discuss from now on for the next 13 sessions, right? So we need to understand who Kunti Devi is, right? So little bit about her life. And so Shurasen was a great king in the Yadu dynasty, okay? And he had a daughter called Pritha, okay? And sorry, I completely didn't look at the chat. So yeah, Vrindamati, Prahlad's prayers, Bhishma's prayers, yeah, Bhishma's stuti is a very, this thing. Vritrasura's prayers, yeah, thank you Vinay Prabhu, very important, very important. Okay, Vritrasura's life, is very interesting. I suggest you should all, hear about Vritrasura or at least read about him, right? And then, yeah, thank you so much. Okay, going back to my notes. So life of Kunti Devi. So Shurasen was a very great king in the Yadu dynasty. And he had a daughter whom he named as Pritha, right? And we see this name Pritha being used by Krishna while addressing Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, right? So, and then Shurasena had a cousin called Kunti Bhoj, okay? And Kunti Bhoj always wanted a child, but somehow he could not have a child. And so that is the reasen Shurasen gave his daughter Pritha to Kunti Bhoj to adopt, right? And therefore, that's how the name Kunti comes, the daughter of the king Kunti Bhoja. Okay, Kunti Bhoja was a very pious king. He fought from the side of Pandavas in the Kurukshetra war, right? It is also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, first chapter, 5th verse, right? Now, Vasudev was the son of Shurasena as well, right? Vasudev, and Vasudev's son is Krishna, right? So that makes Kunti the aunt, the paternal aunt of Krishna, right? And it so happened in her childhood that Kunti Devi was given the guest department, the seva of the guest department in her father's palace, right? So once Durvas Muni visited the palace, right? We all know Durvas Muni. He's a partial incarnation of Lord Shiva, and that's the reason he gets angry very fast, right? We all usually, when we say Durvas Muni, the pastime that comes to mind is of Amrish Maharaj, right? How he got angry at Amrish Maharaj for breaking the fast before Durvas Muni broke the fast, right? And then we know the story, right? So we know Durvas Muni's anger, right? But here Durvas Muni's tendency to get pleased very quickly also is seen, right? So just like he gets angry too fast, he's also pleased very fast, right? So seeing Kunti's great service attitude, he was very pleased, and then he gave her a mantra, right? And he said that with this mantra you can invoke any demigod to give you a child, okay? And then Kunti was happy that she served a great personality, and then she had this mantra. And then when she was small, like she was not too not of marriageable age, she was young, and she just just like young girls, they play, she was of that age, and then she just for let me test this mantra that Durvas Muni gave me. Okay, she recites that mantra, and then she's seeing the sun globe, right? This is in the morning, and then she says, okay, let me invoke the sun god, let me see if this mantra works. And then she recited that mantra, and the sun god Vivaswan, he appeared before her then and there, right? And then Kunti said, no, I didn't know that this would really work, and I didn't know the ramifications of this. I don't want a child, I haven't even married, this will be a sin if I bear a child now, Then Suryadev says that, look, you have invoked the mantra, and you have invoked me through that mantra, and I have to give you the boon of the child, okay, of a child. I can't I have to do it, right? Otherwise, these demigods and all, they are already laughing at me, right? So but I have to do that, right? I have to give you, because I can't reverse that thing, that the mantra that you chanted, right? But he said that I'm a demigod, okay, I'm a devta, so I'll make sure that your chastity doesn't get your chastity doesn't go away because of this, okay? And then he gives her a child, and we all know that the child is a Karna, right? So Karna, so she doesn't know what to do. She's a young girl, she's not even married, and then she has this baby with her, right? And then with a very heavy heart, she puts the baby in a basket and puts that basket in the river, okay? And then we know that that basket is seen by I forget the name of that. So he's the charioteer of Bhishma Dev. So forget. Anyway, so he receives this. He sees this baby, and he is childless. So he wants a child, and then he adopts this baby, right? And then I mean, this was the last time. This is the last time for many years that Kunti ever sees Karna, right? And then Kunti Devi gets married to Pandu. Okay, there is a Swayamvar ceremony for Kunti Devi, and they immediately click, and Pandu gets married to Kunti Devi. And then somehow it so happens that one day while hunting, Pandu is cursed. Pandu Maharaj is cursed, and because of that, he leaves the entire kingdom, takes his wives, and goes to the forest to, in exile, something like that. Not in exile, but he goes to the forest to perform tapasya. And there he gets a desire to have children. But then the curse is such that if he tries to have children, then he'll drop dead. That is the curse. So then there there Kunti, somehow in the conversations, it is revealed that Kunti Maharani has this, boon given by Durvas Muni when she was a kid, right? that she can invoke any demigod. And then Pandu requests her to invoke, firstly he tells her to invoke the demigod of justice, Dharmaraj, right? And that's how Yudhishthir Maharaj is born. Then he tells her to invoke the demigod of strength, or Vayudev, right? And that's how Bhima is born, right? And then he tells him to invoke the demigod of fighting, right? Who is very adept at fighting. That is Indra. And then we know Arjuna is born out of that, right? And then Kunti gives this mantra to Madri, the second wife of Pandu Maharaj. And then Madri also recites this mantras and invokes the Ashwini Kumaras. Ashwini Kumaras are like the doctors of the demigods, the physicians of the demigods, right? So they can heal anything. Okay, they can heal, like literally. They are very great doctors. So she invokes the Ashwini Kumaras, and then twins are born to her. That is Nakul and I don't know if they were twins, but Nakul and Sahadev were born of Madri. Okay, and then finally it so happens that Pandu dies, and then Madri goes into the funeral pyre, and then Kunti is left with the 5 kids. So she always took care of these kids as her own kids. She never differentiated that, this is these are Madri's kids and these are my kids, right? And then we all know the story that, one thing about Kunti Maharani's life is that there were too many calamities in her life. At every step there were calamities. Okay, every step, first of all, this thing with Karna happened, and then she gets married to Pandu, and then Pandu dies, she becomes a widow. Then she's left with the responsibility of these 5 children, right? Who are great kids, by the way. They are pure devotees of Lord Krishna. And then she comes back to the palace, right? And then so at this point of time, Dhritarashtra is the interim king. Okay, he's king in interim. He's not like the permanent king, but because Pandu leaves for the forest, Dhritarashtra, although he's blind, and as per the laws at that time, a blind man cannot be a king, but still, because Pandu went away and there was no king to rule the kingdom, Dhritarashtra becomes a temporary king, kind of a thing. And then now Pandu's son Yudhishthir is the eldest amongst the Kauravas as well as the Pandavas, right? And then we know that Duryodhan, he is very envious of the Pandavas, and he doesn't want Yudhishthir to become the king. And then to that end, he plots so many vicious plans to kill Kunti as well as the Pandavas, right? He gives the poisonous cake to Bhima, right, to get him killed. And then he makes a palace made of lac, and then he invites, he tells Pandu and Pandavas and Kunti Devi to go to that palace, and then his plan is to burn that palace so that they die, but somehow due to Vidura's quick cleverness, they are saved, right? And then so many other, and then we know the gambling match, and then we all know what happened. The Pandavas and Kunti are sent in exile, right? 13 years of exile, and like Vanavas, and 1 year of Agyatavas, right? 1 year of incognito, right? And then even they all do that, and then even when they are in the forest, they face so many challenges, they face so many dangers, right? And then all through that, Kunti is just patiently, living. And then finally, after they come back, also, things don't work out, and then finally there is the war. And then after the war, this Ashwathama, he was a crazy guy. So because he lost the war, he was on the side of the Kauravas. He went, after the war was over, at night he went to the camp of the Pandavas and killed all the 5 sons of the Pandavas, right? And of course, Abhimanyu was killed unfairly in the Chakravyuha. We know that. Plus the 5 other Pandava sons are also killed by Ashwathama in the dead of the night. So this way she loses her grandsons as well. You see, at every step in her life, there is a lot of calamity, right? She loses her grandsons, right? And then finally, it so happens that Yudhishthir becomes the king. Eventually, Krishna reinstates Yudhishthir as the king. And then one last thing that Ashwathama does to destroy the Pandava lineage, he releases a Brahmastra to kill the fetus, kill the baby in the womb of Uttara, right? that is Maharaj Parikshit. And it is said, so when he released the Brahmastra, Ashwatthama released the Brahmastra, Uttara came running to Lord Krishna to save her, right? To save her and the baby. And at that time, Lord Krishna, by his, mystical potency, he shrunk himself, and he literally went into the womb and he protected the baby from the Brahmastra, protected the baby as well as Uttara, right? Through his Sudarshan Chakra, right? And then the thing is, the baby at that time is he's looking at this personality who is there, right? Who is this divine personality here, right? And as soon as he's born, he's like examining everybody. Is it that personality who I saw in the womb? Are you that personality I saw? He's examining everybody to identify who was that personality who came into the womb of my mother's womb and saved me, right? And because he's examining everybody, his name is Parikshit, because he's doing pariksha of everybody, right? Just some interesting facts. Anyway, and she was very devotional throughout her life. Okay. And then it so happens that when Yudhishthir becomes the king, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, they live in the kingdom of Yudhishthir for some time. And then finally Vidura comes and he speaks very harsh words to Yudhishthir. He kind of humbles him, and then he convinces him to leave the palace. And Mahabharata, according to Mahabharata, even Gandhari leaves with the Dhritarashtra and even Kunti leaves with Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. They go to the Himalayas and they perform, austerities there, and then finally they leave their bodies. Kunti also leaves her body. This is according to the Mahabharata. And then she performed many austerities, right? Even while living in the palace. Okay, she would sleep on the floor. She would eat very less, right? According to Mahabharata, a point comes in her life when she would eat only once in 30 days, right? So that is great austerity, right? And she's a pure devotee, okay? An eternal associate of the Lord, okay? And at this point of time, I want to share my screen to present something that Prabhupada had said. Where is my Chrome? So this is what Prabhupada writes in one of his letters. To answer your second question, you should know that Arjuna and Kunti Devi are not in Krishna Loka. They are eternally associated with Krishna only in the material world. Just like Krishna is always in the spiritual world, so similarly, he's always in the material world and his pastimes are going on there also. In the material world, Krishna also has eternal associates such as Arjuna and Kunti Devi. Right? So this way we understand that Kunti Devi is an eternal associate of Krishna. Okay. And then let me go back. Yeah. So and then her rasa with Krishna is of Vatsalya, of parental affection. Okay, of motherhood, and that is her rasa. And then I have a okay. I have a few more things to discuss, but I guess I'll skip that. So within Vatsalya, there is a hierarchy. Okay, I wanted to discuss where Kunti Maharani falls in that hierarchy. And then there are 3 categories of prayers, which I don't think it's already 10. So let me just skip to the verses. Okay. So the situation, the context of Kunti Maharani's prayers is so when after Krishna saves Uttara, he prepares to leave for Dwarka, back to Dwarka, and at that time Kunti Maharani, and that time when he's leaving the palace, that's when Kunti Maharani is offering these prayers. Okay, so one thing is that separation is painful. Okay, but impending separation is also equally painful, right? Impending separation is where when you know that that person is still there, but you know that that person is going to leave now. That is impending separation, right? And in this, and it is very painful because you are seeing that person before you, and now that person is going to leave, right? So it's painful, as equally painful, as much as the pain of separation. So in this impending pain of separation, that is when Kunti Maharani offers these prayers, right? So the first prayer is 1.8.18 in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Kuntya Uvacha Namasya Purusham Tvadyam Ishwaram Prakrate Param Alaksham Sarvabhutanam Antarbahir Avasthitam. So translation, Srimati Kunti said, "O Krishna, I offer my obeisances unto you because you are the original personality and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing both within and without everything, yet you are invisible." Okay, this is the first verse of Kunti Devi. And yeah, thank you for sharing the screen. And let me go back to the notes. Yeah. So antarbahir avasthitam, right? Prabhupada writes in the purport that this is a puzzle to the common man. Okay, antarbahir avasthitam means that Krishna is existing both within and without everything. Okay, yet he's invisible to all. Right. So we see this kind of a puzzle in Bhagavad Gita, in the 9th chapter. Krishna says, "Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matsthani sarvabhutani na chaham teshvavastitah." In my unmanifest form, I am all pervading. I'm pervading the entire universe. And then the very next verse, he says, "Nachamatthani bhutani." Okay, still I am aloof from the universe. Okay, "Nachamatthani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaram." Okay, so Krishna is saying that this contradiction, he's saying, "Behold my mystic opulence, O Arjuna." Right. So this puzzle, for a common man, it is a puzzle, but for a devotee, it is a wonder. It is a cause of wonder. And, oh, my Lord is so great that he can, exist within and without the world, and at the same time be invisible to everybody. Right. And that Krishna, does it through his yoga Maishwaram, or his mystic potency. Right. And then, and another point that Prabhupada mentions is Krishna does not reveal himself to the rebellious souls, right? Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrita mudho yam nabijanati loko mam ajam avyayam. Right. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport that, Krishna's, you need the eyes of love, premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena, right? The eyes anointed with the salve of love. Okay. This comes in Brahma Samhita. Only when that is the case, only at that point does Krishna reveal himself to the devotee, right? And then, yeah, Krishna is the original personality. She's addressing him as the Namaste Purusham Tva Adyam, right? Adya Purusha, Namaste Purusham Tva Adyam, Ishwaram Prakrite Param, right? He's the controller, the supreme controller. Alaksham Sarvabhutanam, Antarbahir Avasthitam. Right. So yeah, Kunti is glorifying Krishna. She is establishing the position of Krishna in the first verse of the teachings of Queen Kunti. Right. And moving on to the next verse. Maya Javani Kachannam Adnyadokshajam Avyayam Nalakshase Mudadrisha Natonatya Dharo Yatha. So here the translation is, being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of deluding energy. You are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. Right. Here again, she's affirming the supreme quality of Krishna of being adhokshaja. Okay. Being beyond the range of limited sense perception. Right. This takes us back to the ascending process that we might try to analyze things, or do things in such a way that we see Krishna, right, or we figure out Krishna, right? But here Kunti Maharani is saying that Krishna is adhokshaja. He's beyond the range of limited sense perception, right? So there is no way that through our senses we can perceive Krishna. Okay. And covered by the curtain of deluding energy, that is the Mahamaya. And then you are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly like an actor dressed as a player is not recognized, right? So this is again Krishna's Mahamaya potency, right? So he mentions in the Bhagavad Gita as well, right? Avajananti ma mudha manushim tanumashritam, right? So those who think that I was a person before and have, I was unmanifest before and have assumed this personality, which is temporary, made up of the modes of material nature, is mudha, is a foolish person, right? Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, right? So for such people, Krishna doesn't reveal himself. Okay, so he's invisible to that foolish observer. Okay, and there were many such people during Krishna's time also who didn't see the authority of Krishna, didn't see the supreme the supremeness of Krishna, right? And then so Krishna here, Kunti Maharani is saying Krishna is beyond sense perception, right? So how do we perceive Krishna, right? So we cannot perceive Krishna. The only way to perceive Krishna is through grace, okay? Is only when Krishna reveals himself to us, right? When he reveals himself by seeing our devotion, right? So ours is a descending process. Our process is not an ascending process where we try to figure out Krishna, right? Because our constitutional position is that we are infinitesimal, right? And we are finite. So the finite cannot perceive the infinite, right? But the infinite can surely manifest himself to the finite, right? Otherwise, he can't be called infinite. Okay, think about it, like just playing with words, right? Although this playing with words is not going to help me at the time of my death, but somehow, at least playing with words to establish Krishna's supremacy is better than just playing with words, playing with material words, right? So so the finite cannot perceive the infinite unless the infinite reveals himself to the finite, right? That is what our process is. That by practicing devotional service, by offering prayers, by chanting Hare Krishna, right? Which is the best medium of offering prayers in Kali Yuga, right? Because we are not so intelligent in Kali Yuga that we'll offer the great prayers that Kunti Maharani is offering, right? Our prayers are nothing as compared to the prayers of these great souls, right? But the holy name is what we have, right? Which is a prayer, okay? And when we intensely pray to Krishna, when we serve him with sincerity, that's when the infinite Krishna will reveal himself to us. And that is there is this famous quote of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati: don't try to see God, try to serve God and please him in such a way that God is pleased to reveal himself to you, right? It is what is the purport, right? Is the inference from this verse, right? And this is it, I think, the first two verses. I'm sorry I spent too much time on the introduction, but so I listened to a lecture of Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj. That's where he covers all these things that I covered, right? Why we should offer prayers, why are prayers important, and then what kind of prayers, and what is the advantage of repeating prayers of great souls, and all those things. We couldn't discuss the hierarchy of within Vatsalya Ras. That is okay, not that important in this context. And then there are three categories of prayers as well. So maybe we can discuss that some other time. So thank you very much. If there are any comments, please let me know. I sincerely apologize for spending too much time on the introduction. But the reason I did that is the verse and the purports are like kind of small and they are very self-explanatory in a way. So I thought, let's just spend time in getting the correct disposition to study the teachings of Queen Kunti. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So thank you, Jitendra Prabhu. That was amazing. Especially the initial part. I really liked how you covered the importance of prayers, the types of prayers, everything. So thank you so much. If anybody has any questions or comments, please unmute and feel free to speak. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Jitendra Prabhu.
Sure. Hare Krishna, Paul Prabhu.
Sorry, my camera is not working tonight, but I wanted to thank you very much for starting us off on this great section of the Bhagavatam. And please do not apologize for the introduction. I think it was incredibly well spoken and full of so much great backstory for us to understand where Queen Kunti is coming with these prayers. So it was wonderful to start this off, and thank you so much for this evening.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Guruji. Thank you. I really loved all the examples and all the initial the mood that you set for this entire session. I think we can call it as a setting the mood for understanding the prayers of Kunti. So that was really amazing. I really loved the example of beggar I was just thinking like how we approach Krishna, and as you said, like what will you give to a beggar? So like I really like how you
It
said
becomes so
like
real, right? It becomes so real when we see that, we look at it through that analogy. Yeah, we are beggars to Krishna. We are naughty beggars, not just beggars. We have just turned away from Krishna and just we have, yeah.
right. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. I really liked it. Like, and I'm gonna hear it again because of the like what I'm forgetting because there are so many points like what is the importance of prayers and why we should repeat them, why we should read them. So
I'll
thank you,
send you
Prabhu.
Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj's lecture. You should rather listen to that. Maharaj explains very nicely, much better than me. So I'll send you that. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Is that the 6-part series, Prabhu? The 6-part series on Islam?
Yes, exactly.
Vinay Prabhu, go ahead.
So,
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Jitendra Prabhu. Thank you so much for
Vinay
amazing
Prabhu,
class, covering everything and all those amazing quotations from like all the shastras. And the last point, Prabhu, that you mentioned about like when we know that person is leaving, like you use some word there. Like, can you please?
impending separation. Prabhu.
Impending separation, Prabhu. Yeah, that really struck me. I mean, I have experienced it like myself, like on material level, like when I'm coming back from India and when I know that I'm going to leave my parents and family, like
Yeah.
so yeah, it is so relevant. It is much more painful, like, and in that mood, like Kunti Maharani is like singing these prayers, like so.
Yes.
Thank you so much for highlighting and specifically mentioning. Like I never thought about this difference, but like I learned through your lecture today. Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
This is my entire lecture is like literally as it is from Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj's lecture. So this is none of this is my, like, the credit for none of this goes to me. This is Maharaj's.
So, but you highlighted and shared it. So, yeah, like here credit goes to you. So, thank you so much. Impending like separation. Yeah, I clearly loved it. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you, Prabhu. And yeah, looking for your more lectures ahead.
Thank you so much, Vinay.
Hare
Athena Mataji, you can unmute and speak, please.
Hi, Krishna, Jitendra, Prabhu, Dandavat
Hare Krishna,
Pranams.
Mataji.
Thank you so much for such a lovely session. You can definitely tell you're very passionate about scripture, shastra, and preaching. The introduction was wonderful, and it's just very endearing because you get the sense that you could just talk and talk and on and on. So there's definitely a passion and enthusiasm for speaking and preaching. I actually had a question, and I've heard different things, and I never had the time to really investigate it. But what you pulled up from Prabhupada answering how Arjuna and Kunti are only eternally associated with Krishna in the material world. I didn't quite understand that because, one, when they left, you hear they like went back up, like, and this is Krishna and Queen Kunti's like original form, but also, if so. Krishna is always in the spiritual world, and the manifestation of Krishna in one sense in the operations of the material world is Vishnu and Paramatma. And so Krishna must descend down for his pastimes. Similarly, Nitya Siddhas, which are already in the spiritual world, and if Queen Kunti and Arjuna are Nitya Siddhas, then they too have descended from the spiritual world, which again, so then they're eternally associated, meaning eternal means without beginning, without end. So they always just manifested in the material world, like I guess he never descended. It just, how does that make sense when we're taught that Nitya Siddhas are in the spiritual world and they can come down, like Mother Yashoda is Mother Yashoda in the spiritual world, she's a Nitya Siddha. So how can we make sense of that? Thank you.
It's so one thing about so you said that when Krishna descends to the material world, he does that through his Vishnu forms. Yes, he does that, but at the same time we also hear that the Vrindavan that we see in this world, like in UP, in Uttar Pradesh, India, that Vrindavan is non-different from Goloka Vrindavan. You might have heard this quite often, right? The Mayapur, Navadvip Mayapur that is there in this world is non-different, okay? And non-different is literally non-different, okay? Just that we don't have the eyes to see that this Vrindavan in this world is actually Golok Vrindavan. Those who have eyes, those who have the eyes to see it, they see it. Okay, that is one thing. So yes, Krishna doesn't leave Vrindavan. He doesn't take a step, even a step out of Vrindavan. That is what it is said, But at the same time, the Vrindavan, the Bhauma Vrindavan that we see in this material world is non-different from, And one thing actually the quote that I told you that I showed is like actually I shrunk it. So actually, luckily I got to meet Sumon Prabhu and I just discussed some of the contents of this session with him, and then we actually had a discussion about that. The other part of that quote is even more bewildering. Okay, so in that Prabhupada writes that a soul who is a devotee of Krishna, he can expand into multiple bodies and assist the pastimes of Krishna at multiple places. He can do that, right? And Prabhupada ends that sentence saying that this cannot be understood by someone who is conditioned. This cannot be understood, right? So yeah, I mean, Krishna's pastimes, one thing we need to understand is in the spiritual world, in the Golok Vrindavan as such, what we read in Brahma Samhita, there it says that he's Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam, right? Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam. He's Purana Purusha, okay? He's like the oldest of all, Purana Purusha. At the same time, he's Navayovanam, okay? He's eternally a young boy, right? So one thing we need to understand is just on the basis of this statement of Brahma Samhita, and this is also spoken about by many devotees as well, the pastime of Krishna being born as a child and growing up, right? That happens in the material world, okay? That happens in the material world in terms of the location, okay? But again, you can't forget the fact that the Bhauma Vrindavan, where Krishna's pastimes took place, is not different from the Goloka Vrindavan, right? So Krishna's pastimes of growing up and all that take place here, and these pastimes are eternally happening in the material world. Okay, when I heard this, I was like quite blown away. So it is Krishna's pastimes never end. Okay, when he wraps up his pastimes in this universe, he starts them in some other universe. And how many such universes are there? Infinite, countless. You cannot count them, right? So all these magnitudes and all these, how can Krishna, exhibit his pastimes, simultaneously in multiple universes, and at the same time, remain the supreme personality Krishna, right? That we tend to think like that because if we think of Krishna as a person like us, if let's say I was to say that, Jitendra doesn't step out of his house, okay? Like we say Krishna doesn't step out of Vrindavan. Let's say Jitendra doesn't step out of his house, right? But that not stepping out of a house is a limitation for me. But for Krishna, it's not a limitation. He can do anything. That is his inconceivable potency, right? So he can be in Vrindavan. That is what that verse says. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachite Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Okay. So this supreme one or whole, so many units manifest from this supreme whole. But even though that happens, that supreme whole always remains the supreme, always remains complete, right? So when it comes to Krishna, 1 minus 1 is not 0. 1 minus 1 is 1. Okay. So that is something inconceivable and the material mind cannot understand that. So in that sense, the Krishna's pastimes that happen in the material world, there Arjuna and Kunti Devi are the eternal associates of Krishna. They are assisting Krishna eternally in the material world in his pastimes, right? And one thing I would like to end is by saying that what is the spiritual world and what is the material world? Like, how do we define that? Yes, we might say, oh, spiritual world means Vaikuntha, there is no misery and all that. But that one defining characteristic that differentiates the material world and the spiritual world is that in the spiritual world, everything is connected to Krishna. Everything is connected to Krishna. And the material world, on the other hand, is where things are disconnected from Krishna, right? So the difference between spiritual and material is whether things are connected to Krishna. Okay, it's not kind of, it's not that, there is a location. There is a location of the spiritual world, right? But that location of the spiritual world, the mood that is there in the spiritual world, can manifest in the material world as well, if we can connect it to Krishna. Prabhupada gave this example so many times. Like he said, consider this mic, right, during lectures. So this mic, as long as it is used for some other purpose, it is material. Okay. But as soon as this mic is used to glorify Krishna, this mic becomes spiritual, right? So the difference between spiritual and material is not necessarily, the location, but it is the consciousness, right? It is the consciousness. That is why it is said, right? When devotees, like Prabhupada said, wherever Krishna's glories are discussed, that is where Golok Vrindavan is. Wherever Krishna is worshipped, that is where Golok Vrindavan is, right? So that's why he said that all our ISKCON temples are like windows to the spiritual world, right? So even within the material world, when we connect something to Krishna, that becomes spiritualized, and we have Prabhupada's testimony for that. So, and it's not like a symbolic thing. Oh, this might become. It is a literal thing. The mic is spiritualized. The mic becomes spiritual, right? Although we might not be able to see it, that is our limitation. That we might not be able to see the spiritual potency of the Bhauma Vrindavan, which is there in India, right now in the material world. That is our limitation. But that is not a limitation for Krishna. Krishna can do anything, right? That way. I hope it confused you more.
Thank you so much. My point was actually everything you said made more sense to me than just that point that they're eternally associated in the material world. It's not confusing at all that a Nitya Siddha can be in the spiritual world and expand infinitely and multiply in various places. Like Mother Yashoda, when she had her pastime here, she was also in the spiritual world as well. She had the ability to expand in that sense. That's makes more
No, I
sense.
mean, again, like Nitya Siddha, how do you define Nitya Siddha? I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt. Who is a Nitya Siddha?
The eternally liberated. So what I meant was, then isn't Arjuna and Queen Kunti also in the spiritual world while they simultaneously are in Krishna's leelas in the material world? They have the ability, like maybe I'm too hung up. It just, in my mind, how could they only be eternally associated in the material world? They must also be associated with Krishna in the spiritual, like you can even say location wise, understood that anything connected to Krishna is spiritual. And so everything even happening here on the material world. But I guess that's the part, because even a Jitendra who is eternally liberated, I assume, like, I don't say stems, but is eternally situated in the spiritual world, like in Vaikunta, and they can expand to have their leelas in the material world, just like Krishna. So it doesn't make sense to me that they only exist in his leelas in the material world. They must also exist in the spiritual world as well. That was more.
So if they assist Krishna in the material world, does that make them not Nitya Siddha? So that is why I want to clarify the definition of Nitya Siddha. A Nitya Siddha is someone who never forgets Krishna, and that is his liberation. The liberation of a Nitya Siddha, as per my understanding, is not necessarily that he is situated in the spiritual world and can expand from there. A Nitya Siddha is, he is eternally liberated in the sense that he's eternally connected with Krishna, and he never falls down from that connection. He never gets disconnected from Krishna, come what may, wherever he is, right? That is, So,
No,
so it's not that if somebody is in the material world, he cannot be a Nitya Siddha. He can be a Nitya Siddha. We have the example of Arjuna and Kunti Devi here, right? Because they're eternally connected. They never fall down from that platform of being connected to Krishna purely. So.